Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Reverse Sweep. We had a nice little break, and I'm excited for today's episode. We're doing something a little bit different where we're going to be backloading the episode with some more podcasty topics and grab some stuff from the community. Going to pick these guys' brains a little bit. But before that, we're going to get into today's matches, and we also have the winner of the Battle Beaver giveaway. Now, I will premise... First of all, boys, how you doing?
Good, James. Good. Can't complain at all.
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. It was a good weekend. So
solid matches, a couple quick ones, but it happens. So I have the winner right here, and I'm gonna premise that for the future, we're gonna be doing another giveaway at 141,000 subscribers. So basically, every 1,000 subscribers, we're like 700 away at the moment. The person who won initially was not subscribed, unfortunately, and you hate to see it.
They broke the rules.
not for the Battle Beaver win, bro.
And I'm not gonna expose him, but it also wasn't a positive comment, so it was like double. It was double trouble. But the winner is Nico O'Toole, and all he said was his favorite player, Shotzi. And he left his Twitter tag. So Nico, I'll be reaching out to you and we'll make sure to get that controller over to you. Thank you for watching all the episodes and showing love. And yeah, guys, we're doing another giveaway at 141,000 subs. So whether that happens after this episode or next episode, we will then be rolling that. But now that we got that out of the way, let's hop into today's matches. Yeah, congrats. So where do we want to start? ROKKR?
Wait, are you talking about today's matches or this weekend's matches?
This weekend and kind of the kind of topics.
That kind of threw me off. I was like,
no, kind of topics in general. I don't know if we'll dive into specific matches as much, but yeah. I definitely talk about the ROKKR team change, and they went 2-0.
Hold on. Listen, we're gonna show ROKKR some love here for their victory, but at the same time, we got to show love to my boy Standy, the Vegas Legion. Obviously, these guys haven't had the best, season of the CDL so far. But the thing that I can commend them for is always looking to make improvements. At the very least, they have been making those improvements. They might not look like a formidable team, a team that is going to win. But I think with Standy being on their team, these guys definitely look a lot better. I think Standy had an outrageous opening match, and he looked better than ever on this Vegas team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, the thing about the Vegas change, I think it was pretty straightforward for them as a team to make this move. I think they've needed an SMG style player who can slay this whole time. They finally got it. Standy, I think, was in a unique spot, getting let go for free by Toronto. I don't know if anyone expected that to happen. I certainly did not. And I think, honestly, some of the other teams in the league, James, maybe even the ROKKR, honestly, could have used, maybe potentially picking him up. But, yeah, I think they're in a good spot now to potentially chase this last spot at Champs, going up against the ROKKR, funny enough, right now. But, yeah, going back to the ROKKR, I mean, they ended up going 2-0. And I know there's a little controversy around their event, we'll call it, where they had 2 matches on the same day. They dropped Detached, filled in for Fame, stepped up from their academy team, and he actually played insanely well. I personally was not expecting him to play as good as he did. Fame came out and absolutely fried, beat my expectations by a mile. I know they were playing against Florida and LAG, who obviously weren't the hardest teams in the league by any means, but I know, Chris, you were also talking how they had the home field advantage. And also, I don't know if they had a travel advantage. I don't know where the ROKKR players all reside at, but obviously other teams had to fly in from wherever they live at. But yeah, it was interesting. I know we saw a lot on the timeline about, certain players not liking this and the advantage it may give to the ROKKR and not to some of these other teams. I know Clay mentioned it, saw Zinni chime in. I said a few things on the flank, and then we obviously had Brett Diamond on, who gave his thoughts on the event. I think, in my perspective here is just that this isn't a ROKKR issue by any means, right? ROKKR is, this should be a thing that ROKKR is able to do, but I think this is just a formatting issue that's at the CDL level that should have been planned for better. And this kind of also goes back to just the CDL format in general, how they handle the schedule, and everything else. But again, I mean, this is still a business. This was a for-profit event, right? These guys weren't putting this on out of the goodness of their hearts. They're trying to find a sustainable business model to make money. And I think all teams eventually have to do this. The problem I have is that, the disparity in the CDL, and we talked about this before a little bit, salaries is kind of the same here, where it's like half of these teams don't have the money to do this, don't have the money committed to the CDL. Like ROKKR, like Thieves, like there's a ton of other teams who obviously do have more backing. And that's where we see the discrepancy here, where, it becomes kind of like, okay, well, if we all agree that having this event in your hometown with your fans, forcing other teams to travel is an advantage, well, the only teams that are able to do that advantage are the teams who can afford to put the event on. And I think that's where the line gets a little gray, because to me, I still think this should be a thing that happens. I just think it should be a thing that happens with every team, every event. Everyone should be able to do this. And I don't think the landscape of the CDL provides for that opportunity. So I'm curious to see what you guys think about that.
I mean, I agree with you. You're making it seem like it's pay to win, which I guess to a degree it kind of is in that asset. If you're trying to if you're actually trying to make those things like a tangible advantage, which in my opinion, I think they are. But at the same time, I think the teams have to agree to obviously want to come over. It's not like it's like ROKKR can invite them and just force them to come. So I guess, good on ROKKR for trying to actually explore other ways that they can put on league matches, because this was actually supposed to be kind of similar to the format that we had back in the original CDL, where
Which
before COVID,
miserable, by the way.
which would have been horrible for the players traveling so much just to play league matches. But at the same time, good on ROKKR for trying to find something innovative for their fans. But I mean, I think it's definitely an advantage. Is it unfortunate that ROKKR and Legion and all these teams that even the teams they played, bro, Florida and LAG, they're all fighting for a playoff spot. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I mean, at the end of the day, I can't say anything bad about ROKKR here, to be honest.
From what Brett said, it sounded like they extended these invites and the teams got to choose if they went, but they also they could kind of pick who they invited, right? Like that's the kind of sketchy part, is they could individually choose who to invite to this. So that's where it's you mentioned the teams. I know this was scheduled ahead of time, so they obviously couldn't have known, but it is a little weird. Even if you look at the CDL, I wouldn't extend an invite to FaZe.
Oh, that's true. I was gonna say
I would know that okay, these are the worst teams, and this is who I'm gonna extend an invite. This is a free win. But yeah, I thought that was funny that he mentioned that they kind of could decide who to invite.
That's actually hilarious. I wonder I wonder if they did invite any of the top teams, because so shout out to ROKKR again. I think the event thing is a fantastic idea. Yeah, I agree. There are some weird sketchy things that you could say about the whole way it's done and the CDO approving and stuff like that. Sure, but I don't think that's their intention. Their next event has London and Boston, and at least prior to Boston making those changes, I'm sure this was planned in advance. Boston was
Nah, they invited the Boston with Zinni on it, bro. So
yeah, okay, dude, but you get the point. And then London, yeah. So I'm assuming at least for them, marketing wise, it's probably a good idea for them to invite the lower tier teams, so that way they can probably guarantee a victory. And no one wants to see the fucking home crowd team get pummeled. So
that's what happened at their major. I think that was a big problem. Is last year, right? Their major, their team got double first rounded and got sent out day one, which, I mean, dude, I mean, think about it. He mentioned these events cost, $1 million+ to put on and hold throughout the weekend. If your home team, the people who are coming to buy tickets to see your team are getting double first rounded going out on the first day, I'm sure that's obviously a horrible thing for them and as a whole. But
yeah, do you think? I mean, I feel like the solution in my head is that obviously from a league approval standpoint is in the beginning of the season, whether it's ROKKR and another org or multiple orgs, but would it be fair if each team got to play an equal amount of matches at some point down the line, on LAN, in these extra play in matches for spots? Like, would that
I mean,
solve
I think it would be fair, James, but at the same time, like, I don't see the CDL going out of their way to host these things. I think the teams are the ones that are going to be the ones that are trying to host these things for their fans. It's like it's more
Yeah.
so a fan service, right? Like, I think the league is committed to basically having as many matches online as possible, just because it's cheaper for them. But also, like I said, it's on the team, so unless the CDL Garrett makes it mandatory, like let's say this starts becoming a trend where a lot of teams are doing this, right? You gotta understand that some of these teams will go in with the intention of having these matches, and they're like, okay, we're gonna regulate this to some degree. But if it's like one of those one-off things where it's like not happening very often, I don't see the CDL regulating it at all.
Yeah. I guess I was more so thinking in terms of like it's either an all or nothing thing. Like, okay, in the
That's
beginning of
how
the
I view
year,
it, yeah.
in the beginning of the year, if we can get enough people, whether it's 2 orgs to agree to where every team could play at least one match or an equal amount of matches on LAN, then at least like everyone's gotten that fair.
I think
fair
there could be
play.
a thing. I think there could be a thing where, how like every single, so it's not like a major, but it's like, every weekend every week in the CDL, they have the league matches where multiple teams are playing 2 matches, multiple teams are playing. What if, like, let's say one of the weekends that Minnesota has 2 matches, right? They want to host their thing, host it, but you're bringing you're not necessarily bringing, but all the other teams are coming, and they're just having the CDL weekend of matches on LAN, but obviously the hyped up matches are the 2 Minnesota ROKKR, matches that they have on that weekend. While let's say, they bring in all the other teams that play, like, they'll play each other, they just won't play against ROKKR, like, the whole time.
But what's funny about this is like this just goes back to the city-based franchising model, right? Like, I fully disagree with it, but they have to find a way to put these activations in each city of each team that's representing that city. And like, the reality is, like, this was meant to be a LAN league. It's not. It's an online league, and these online matches are supposed to be neutral matches, right? Like, no one has an advantage. It's all online. But the problem is, it's impossible to make this format work in a city-based model because, otherwise you have to have every team fly out to every city every time there's a match to have it on LAN. And I mean, look, I don't know if they're going to change this model at this point, but like, I would really, when we compare to like Riot and how they do League of Legends, right, where every team plays in LA at the Burbank. I think they're at the. Did they move? I think they moved studios. They were at the Burbank
it's
arena.
It's
But
down.
you played every match. Every team lived there. They came in. That is how I see LAN leagues working. Because the expenses alone, just from making teams travel every weekend to go to new cities to play matches on LAN, and the cost of putting on the event and the venue and everything else, those costs are insanely expensive, and there's obviously not the return there in the CDL. So I think this is ROKKR's version of trying to find a model that works. But again, I think, Chris, I don't know if you heard Brett say his big thing was having this be a one-day event, like a one-day activation. That was like the key, because it's not a big commitment for the fans. And I don't know if you can ever do that when you try to invite everybody. I think that's why they have to invite a selective group. But then we run into the issues of it being unfair to others. So.
The thing is, you want to be cool. They could do things where they could schedule league matches around these home activations. So, for example, one weekend of league matches, it's Minnesota's home little series thing, and it's also, let's say, OpTic's, okay? And so Minnesota will host their 2 matches against LAG and Florida at their facility. Okay. And then OpTic will be playing New York and Seattle at their facility on that weekend. And they just do those matches. And then the next weekend, there's 2 more. And so that would make it so those teams are all playing each other, but they're like at separate places. So while, let's say OpTic basically has like a thing with esports Arlington, right? The arena that they had the major at. That's where they would host their little home series. And then Minnesota, let's say hypothetically, if they own their own little venue, right, their own space, that's where they do theirs. And so like every team would then, assuming this is even possible, with some teams obviously not wanting to spend money, if we ideally had the orgs that could put on these things, I think it would be cool where everyone has their own little arenas, right?
I'd
where,
go to
like,
the Clayster Garage. homestand.
But you get the point, right? Where everyone has their own little arenas. They're not like renting something just because it's a small space, right? If you're doing this little home series with fucking four teams,
Well, you
or
still
four,
gotta sell tickets to fans.
Well, true, but like
the
you get the
problem
point.
is, I think like that's a great idea, but the problem is you just can't get those teams to commit to putting on these activations, right?
Yeah.
Like London's not doing this. Vegas absolutely is not doing this. Like, they don't have the staff. Like,
that's what I'm saying. In an ideal world, I think that'd be cool. Where like one weekend ROKKR's having their little activation and OpTic's having theirs, and then next weekend the CDL matches, Wolf FaZe is doing theirs and Florida's doing theirs, and you know the teams just take turns every weekend, whether they're doing their own little homestand or the other team's doing their little homestand, traveling back and forth. That way, not every team is traveling every weekend. It's only, you know, maybe like every other weekend you travel and you go to a homestand or you host your own. I think that's a cool idea if that's ever possible.
Yeah, I think in general too, it's like, again, like you guys have said, it's typical for ROKKR to do this, and I think that like the goal is that like ROKKR proves that a certain business model ends up working for that and making them money. So then hopefully at some point these other orgs can also be like, okay, well, ROKKR kind of took the bullet and tried this and it ended up working for them. So like maybe we can look into this without it end up being like a loss and actually help our org make money.
Did you see the ROKKR pick after though? I don't know if they tweeted it on their Twitter, like their Instagram or what, but I mean, dude, the ROKKR had like 30 employees that were a part of putting that on, and it's like there's probably 2 employees at Vegas. Like I think that's the problem, is like these things aren't easy to put on from a production standpoint. Like it takes a lot of people, a lot of time to prepare, and I just don't think the CDL is at the place due to strictly, I mean, simply the again, we go back to the discrepancy between the teams, and it's always going to be a problem until we're on equal footing with the amount of teams.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll reel it back in, and let's cover LAT. There's not much to say. They kind of came out and showed that they're hitting form a little bit, and we're seeing a little bit of a late game LAT after kind of a disappointing appearance on LAN.
I mean, I expected it. I've been said that although it didn't happen, I think these guys obviously had their ups and downs since their placing at the, what was it, the Boston tournament. I said that they were basically going to carry their momentum from that tournament and look like a good team this entire year, which at least on the online stage prior to Dallas, they looked good. They made winners bracket, but then they ended up, you know, having that issue with Kenny's controller. And I know, like, you know, you can say that's excuses and they could have all still done better. They had losers bracket, but at the same time, you have one of those like moments at a tournament, it could completely ruin your weekend and you can have a bad weekend. I know it happened, you know, it happened with Toronto when they had Standy, where they looked good up all the way up in the qualifier, went to the event and got shit on. No team is no team is immune from having that happen to them. So whatever, Thieves end up bombing out, but at the same time, they come back after a terrible stage and they start off this this weekend 2-0, and they look good. They beat the reigning champions in Toronto. And who else did they beat? I can't remember.
Seattle 3-1.
Seattle, yeah. So they beat another team that placed in the top 4. Was it? Did they place top 4? Did Seattle place top 4 at the major? Was it?
No,
was it top 6?
Top
6. Oh, dude, I'm terrible with the placement and stuff like that. But they beat a rising Seattle, which I think improved on their placement. And I feel like they've been looking a little bit better in certain game modes. So Thieves are on the up and up. They just got to put it together at another major because they've only been able to do it at one so far.
Yeah. Also, Envoy had a crazy series this weekend. Like he absolutely fried against a good team, and it's always interesting for me when you see subs frying on AR maps, because for me it's like when you see a sub fry on AR maps, I mean like they fried because that's not easy to do. Especially going like untradeable on that Hydro. He was having his way, but yeah, I mean, I think they've put it together. Obviously didn't have the event they were looking for, but I think they're probably gonna have. I always talk about like Seattle having the opposite of the roller coaster effect. I think Thieves is kind of gonna bounce back pretty strong this major. I did take Draza in fantasy. He was a steal at like $6 or whatever it was, but. I do think they're going to have a bounce back, and probably, honestly, they might come out and be favorites to win Major 4, especially going to Columbus. I know they had success at the Pro-Am a year ago in Columbus at the same venue I think that we're going to use, the Belong Arenas venue. So yeah, I think they're going to be on the up and up for Major 4.
Wait, Pat, quick question. What's your fantasy team? Because I feel like what your
Standy,
fantasy team was very close to what mine was about to be, but then I just like chalked and went with a different direction.
I did
Standy,
Standy,
Draza.
Draza, Pred, and Cammy.
Okay, yours was very similar to what mine was going to be because I picked Cell, and I think Cell and Pred are basically damn near the same amount of money.
Yeah.
And then I was making the decision whether I wanted Draws in Standy or if I wanted to go with like the Fame pick. And when I picked Fame, I like didn't know who else to pick, and I ended up picking Sam. But I was looking at those two, and then Cammy. Who's my fourth? I think my fourth is it's Hixie because he was like the only
you
other
got
person
killed today then. 'cause
Oh,
you
it
went,
was
like,
horrible,
30.
bro. It was horrible. And the only reason was because like I had faith in Toronto making runs in tournaments, so I had to pick a player that was gonna make a run. Every other player, like I picked people on teams that were gonna make a run, and then like Fame was just a gamble on him coming up on the up and up.
Yeah.
And dude, I was so close to picking your team when Standy and Draws both had insane series on the same day. And I was like, dude,
That's why I was
are you
hyped.
kidding me when I missed them? But
I
yeah,
mean,
dude.
on the Hixie note though, we can transition it to Toronto. Are they lanners? Like, what is the are they just is Bell Fiber
No.
is Bell Fiber not it?
No. They have this. I said this in the flank. Their map count online and on LAN is like very similar. Like it's the highest in the league. They at least prior to this weekend. I don't know. I'm not gonna go and check. But prior to this weekend, we were talking about after the major, they have the best record online and on LAN. Like they're actually almost similar, like identical in terms of like map count. Obviously, the results always transition that way, but they're equally good on both. At least if the whole year is added up. My thing is,
Chris, is that's before they won.
yeah,
Those
you
stats are based
think
on
that's
before
gonna
they
get to their
won.
head? Nah, listen,
Not
bro.
get to their head, but I mean, dude, you've seen it. I've seen it with a million players. Like people win, and then there's a little pause there of like the mentality swift. It's like once you, and I'm not saying this is the case for this team, but I'm damn saying it. I've seen it before where you win, you get a little comfortable, right? Like you achieved that, you check that off. And you kind of, maybe have a minor temporary setback where you're not checked, but like you're feeling like on top of the world. And I think, them getting, 0-2 this weekend, granted they were some game 5 close series, could be a little of a wake up call that they need to, hey, look, like, yeah, you just won, but you have to get back in form quick because 0-2 that's a rough way to start because you basically got to go flawless to make winner bracket.
I mean, I don't think anyone on that team is necessarily gonna get to the point where they just like completely fall off because they get an ego. But the one thing I will say, Scrappy was on the flank watch party when we were talking to him in TeamSpeak, and he basically said, "Oh, this game online sucks." So even though like they were having a lot of success online, and hey, I agree with you, this game online sucks. The fact that you guys play a completely different game online to LAN is insane. But if he's doing that online cheese where he's just like blaming it online, like eventually like that might come to bite him in the ass with some sort of complacency. Although they did lose game 5 to both teams they played, and they lost game 5 to a team that they have basically gone game 5 with every single series they've played with their new rosters. They lost to Boston once, I think game 5 in their qualifier before they dropped Standy. They went game 5 with them at the major, and I think they went game 5 and lost them again. So they played a team that had their number, and then again they went game 5 with Thieves. And Thieves, they're not a pushover team. Yeah, they might not have had the most consistent results this year, but we already know what that team's capable of when it comes to actually making tournament runs. Like we know that's a team that's gonna be reliably at least a competitor at some point during the year. And I think they just ran into a hot Thieves team and a team that they may not be the best against. And they basically lost in Neslos. Although they weren't losing their controls, they lost 2 S&Ds in a respawn.
Which is really the only way they're getting game 5s, like their control.
Yeah, well, yeah, because they're just so good at it. They like can't lose that swing game mode apparently. Either way, are they lanners? No, bro. We were literally talking about them being online warriors before when we made the predictions. I was like, yo, I'm done making predictions based off their online results right before Dallas, and then they won. So nah, they're not Lanners. I think they're just a really good team, and I think we're playing a game with a low skill gap, and sometimes shit goes in your favor and sometimes shit doesn't. Unfortunately.
Well said.
Anyways. Yeah.
I don't know that there's much more on that, but I do want to talk about OpTic. It wouldn't be an episode if we didn't bring them up a little bit. What does this OpTic team need to do to keep the form that they showed at that major? Because obviously we've seen in the past in every game that like teams can have good performances on LAN and have a really good LAN tournament and make a run like that, but sometimes it just doesn't translate beyond that. With LAG's win last year, and a couple other scenarios, like how does OpTic lock it in and make sure that like they use this to carry that momentum throughout the rest of the year into champs and throughout these qualifier weeks?
I think they need to get better at control. I think their hotel was like the only map that they were decent at. And then they ended up like whenever they had to like play Fortress, they were like losing it in the most brain dead or like dramatic fashions. And luckily that's not in the maps anymore. So I think if they want to like keep this run, obviously they're good at hardpoint. Like they're good at their 3 maps. They got their embassy, they got their fortress, which that's gonna get auto vetoed. So they're gonna be starting up. They're gonna play hotel and embassy damn near every series, or hydro, which they're not terrible at. They got slammed by Toronto, but they're not terrible at it. I think they're good at hardpoint. S&D, they've been pretty up and down, but their control's been fucking mid as fuck. And I feel like a lot of the time they've been playing that fortress. Now they're getting what is this map called? Himalayas Expo. I don't fucking know. Hakuna Matata Expo. They're pretty hyped on that map. They said apparently they said that's their playground. So if they can get another good control under their belt, like they're in a good spot, because I feel like that was the one game mode that was like, I don't know if they could win it. And now they're starting to look better on a lot of other maps. So I think that's going to be the key for them moving forward, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think they'll keep that form, regardless of whether they like Himalaya Expo or not. I think they're just on a roll right now. They're all firing on all cylinders. I still, and I know we talked about this in a few past episode, is this Ghosty situation, maybe even Hook situation, is still so interesting for me, and how it's going to play in as we get closer to champs, right? Like, I think at the end of the day, it won't really affect these players as much, but it does kind of bring to the question, like, even if Chris, I'm curious what you think, even if OpTic win it all, right? Let's say they win champs. Do you think that this team sticks together? Like, if you know for a fact Pred and Sib want to come, you can get them for free. Even if OpTic wins champs, do you think they keep that roster?
You know what's crazy, bro?
I feel like there's no shot.
Don't. Let's say if they were to win it all,
yeah, just win champs.
Even if they were placed like top 2, top 3 for whatever reason, which I think they can. I think I wouldn't mind them going after Pred still, just because that guy is an abomination. But at the same time, I think it would be a mistake, unless Dan is getting mega turned on, to drop Dan. And I just think, like, some people wait,
even if Hugh plays better than Dan, you still think they should just drop Hugh and not Dan?
Reason being, for me, is a lot of people like to say, IGL stuff's like overrated, underrated, whatever. But I think, especially if they go after Pred is coming from a system where he's almost basically like playing with somebody that is very selfless and is letting him kind of do whatever he wants, and just like doing the bitch role, bro. Like, Lamar is essentially doing the bitch role. Like, it's a fact. He always tell you he's got the ultimate green light. In a system with Dashy and Shotzi and even Sib sometimes, I don't know who's going to take that back seat for somebody like Pred. And I'm not saying that Pred or somebody else can't make that adjustment. I feel like Dan already basically does it for this team. And I feel like he's a big reason why their hard point has been better. Prior to Dan being on this roster, their hard point was super inconsistent. I think the only thing they were pretty good at was a couple of S&D maps before they brought in Dan. And now their hard point's really good. So although that could be a product of other things, I feel like Dan has directly impacted that with his communication and even some of his in-game leadership. I think before Shotzi took those reins, and for doing that as a sub player is like insanely difficult to do. And I think them getting rid of Dan, if the results continue to be good, unless he's getting absolutely twerked on, would be a mistake. Going after Pred, I wouldn't be mad at, even if Hook is playing pretty good. Just because Pred is such a commodity, and you also got to take into effect that if they don't get Preds, that means somebody else is getting Pred. You're basically making the competition better by giving up the opportunity to take this guy, which I'm sure he already wants to come to this team. So I don't know, bro. It's tough. Like I said though, unless Dan's getting absolutely slammed, I think it would be stupid to drop Dan.
I'm personally dropping them both. I'm building this God squad no matter what. I feel like, I know people like to say like, oh, there's not enough kills on the map, but I feel like a group of Pred, Sib, Shotzi, Dashy, like, especially I assume they'll get another coach and maybe a coach that fits more their style. I think the problem with Ray's a great coach. He just doesn't fit the style of play that like Shotzi and Dashy and maybe even Pred and Sib would want to play at. So I think they'd get a coach, and I don't know. I think these guys would figure it out. I don't think the IGL hurdle would be that much of an issue. And they would just be so insane. They'd be the most talented team in the league by which is crazy, the fact that FaZe is a team. But yeah, they would be the most talented team in the league by far.
Yeah, potentially.
So yeah, I would drop them. I would drop them both regardless. But I do, going back to Dan, I do think that kid's going to end up on probably a decent team, because I think he's shown he's more than a role player. The only issue is, maybe even Seattle, right, would be a landing spot for him. Maybe that could be somewhere he would go. But yeah, I just think, there's no way that you could pass up on either of those two guys, especially because, they like playing with each other, right? Like they might. We've seen this before in the past where teams are like, oh, like I want to play with so and so, like we're a package deal, like to try and just finesse getting both to go. But yeah, I think Ghosty will be fine regardless. But I
think he'll be fine too. But I don't know. I disagree with it. Just because like I think I value the IGL stuff more here, just because I feel like it made such a direct impact with their team already. And then you're also,
they had Hugh.
Well, no, but here's the thing: you're also picking up another player that essentially is so used to that environment. Like Pred has history in like challengers in Australia and stuff like that, but his direct transition into the league was immediately playing with somebody like Lamar. That's just selfless, like guidance type of person, just lets you do whatever the fuck you want and shine. Not to say Pred can't go without it. It's just transition should be like this easy with like keeping Dan. Like I said, who knows, man? Honestly, if they do well though, I'm not looking forward to knowing what that conversation is like at all, because it's gonna lead to heartbreak for somebody.
That's gonna be a tough one, yeah.
Pat, are you quitting X Defiant to go coach that roster?
3 mil over 3 is the amount.
That's
if
the flatline price.
If Hector gives me a call and can get that, then yeah.
You wouldn't come down for possibly the most iconic new roster in Call of Duty history.
No, I still know my worth, James.
Okay.
I still know my worth.
Okay, staying strong at 3 mil. All right.
Yeah.
I respect it. I do think
I might do him a favor and do a 1 mil over 1, just to prove that I can make
the same ratio.
But
it's less of an obligation.
It's less of a commitment.
It's 1 year instead of 3.
But then here's the thing though, like what if you like, right, they give you a mil, they give you a mil and then you're just the greatest coach of all time.
Then I'm coming back, I'm asking for 10 over 10.
Exactly. Yeah. So why would they do that, man? Listen, you're just
it's a gamble on both sides. I could be horrible. I could be the worst coach ever.
Yeah.
So you know what you're doing, Pat. But honestly, if they had coaches in game, I would coach that shit so fast. I would just be sitting there.
I think that's
rotate,
the problem with coaching in general, dude, is you can't have coaches in game right now. Like that's what leads to the coach. That whole argument we had a few episodes ago when we were like, are coaches even worth it? Like that is literally why.
Coaching,
it's really like a glorified analyst. It's not really a coach.
Yeah.
Coaching in this game, all like, you know, I said like there's a lot of fluky shit that happens in Hardpoint. A lot of that fluky shit would just be
Yeah, we
like
clean
not
up.
gone, but it would clean up so well. Like I would literally just be looking at the kill feed. I'm like, oh, this isn't a clean 4. Like one of them's gonna spawn like here and be like,
Yeah.
Bro,
okay, guys.
remember that situation of Shotzi when he chowed on that fortress? Like, if there was a coach in the game, like that's not happening. Like, I'm telling
No shot, bro.
everybody to fucking L trigger and not move. Same thing with Hugh rotating it like 55. Like situations like that, bro. Like they just don't happen. All those blunders when you have a coach in your ear, like kind of directing things and calling shit out, that just wouldn't happen. So,
Yeah.
100%.
yeah.
Before we hop on to the I don't even know if I want to call it a community segment, but broader podcast topics about Call of Duty and you guys in general. There was a really viral, and by really viral, like it went viral in the COD space. Ghosty hopped on the Eavesdrop podcast this last week and shared like I would say some personal stuff that I think a lot of people maybe didn't know about him. And I think that like as a fan, outside of whether he's on London or OpTic, it doesn't matter what team he's on. Like it's at a point where it's very hard not to root for the kid, because he essentially, Chris, you can speak on it because I know you know him pretty well, but he's basically been given a lot of reasons to not be where he is today, but he's obviously shown that he's where he belongs, and has achieved that through a lot of adversity, and it's tippable, and it's cool. It's a really good story. It kind of adds to the whole arc of the whole thing. But I just thought it's proof of there is really, he's had every excuse, but it's not transitioning with that at all. So something to chime in about.
I mean, like I know his business is out there, but I'd like to give a quick shout out to the Eavesdrop podcast. So if
Yeah.
you guys would actually like to go and hear his story firsthand,
Yeah.
check out Hex's podcast on the Eavesdrop. But I don't want to like go too much in detail. I don't want to
Yeah.
spoil it for the viewers. But basically, Dan's had a pretty rough upbringing, family life, and well, lack of family life. I'll leave that up into interpretation. But I just wanted to say that, like, outside of just Dan, I think this goes to show that like everyone has a story to tell. And although you might not realize that not every gamer is just a spoiled brat that played video games all their lives and had it easy, a lot of people, even nowadays, like
Although
use
there's
video
definitely some of
games.
those.
There's definitely some of those. But people use video games as a form of escape, bro. And a lot of the time, or like escaping, whether it's like family or like depression or like, you know, your outsides, like your area that you live in. Like I have a good friend in Fire. You know, a lot of people like to give Fire shit, but Fire lives in a terrible neighborhood, right? He had like a gunshot in his like not a gunshot, he had like a gun, like a bullet hole in his window. Like, you know, people live in these places, and they end up escaping that reality or escaping that type of life by playing video games. And some people might be like, wow, dude, like you're so blessed to play video games and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like some of these people didn't like just choose that life. They used it as like a form of escape. They used it as a way to get away and stay out of trouble, or to hide from those problems. And it ended up turning into a career by the blessing of the fact that esports is even a thing and is continuing to be a thing. And I can't help but respect Dan and any other person or player that has gone through similar stuff. I don't want to like make this about me or anything, but my parents were also splitting whenever I was playing Call of Duty, like cheating and stuff like that within my family. I didn't have the best upbringing either. Parents were always fighting, and I played video games to get out of trouble. I wasn't always an FPS shooter. I sat there and played like Nintendo games. Like it was just like it was pure fantasy, like escape from reality. And eventually it turned into what it is today. But I'm sure there's many other players that have not shared their story. And I just want to make it apparent that, like, bro, just be kind to these people and players. It's not an excuse to like, yo, if they're getting shit on, you can't grill them and stuff like that at the end of the day. But like, understand that some of these players have gone through hell and back to get to where they are today, whether it was actual problems or sacrificing things in their life to achieve this sort of dream. It didn't come easy. Even players that were pioneers like me and Pat, right? We didn't just like spawn into the CDL and get paid racks to like play Call of Duty, right? We grinded through years of like no return just
I was
for
getting
fun.
$25 checks for my online tournament wins in 2009.
There's so much shit that goes into life. It's not as simple as like, oh, you play video games for a living. So much respect to Dan, and much respect to basically any person that is going through shit that is still finding a way to make their dreams come true. Because it's not easy.
Love that.
It's not an easy road whatsoever, especially in esports, man.
Yep, love that.
I can't follow that up any better than that, James.
No. And yeah, guys, please check out the Easy Drop podcast if you want to see the whole thing. It's definitely worth the watch. It's hour and some change, and it's one of the best. Now on to a lighter subject. This is not even a returning segment, but for this case, it might be either agree with Doug or cook Doug when he's not here. So another clip went viral over the last week of Doug saying that Scump picked bad teammates. This is kind of a two-part question. Thoughts on that, and then are there other players that you think never had the right teammates and would have had different careers if they had different teammates?
I think Doug is faded. Scump was on a dynasty roster.
No, he's talking
and
about he said CDO only. Modern Warfare, Cold War, Vanguard.
Yeah.
And Modern Warfare 2.
Well, no, but I'm saying, in the CDL only?
Yeah, that was Doug's point.
Let me look at this.
He had Arcitys, Formal, Prestini, Gunless, right?
Envoy?
Yeah. And that was
Or
coming
Envoy?
off of Black Ops 4. Nah, that's not a bad team. Then after MW, who did he have? What was the next game? Was it Cold War?
Formal, Dashy, Envoy.
Sounds right.
Yeah, after Modern Warfare, I think that might have been kind of not the best team. Because I don't think MW Formal was... The thing is, though, is like, with the game transitioning every year, sometimes you're like, oh, we're going back to a Treyarch title. This guy's going to be nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it was Shotzi, Illy, Dashy, right?
Shotzi Illy Dashi was at Vanguard.
Yeah. That wasn't really a picked roster, though, because OpTic Envy merged.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he picked bad teammates. Like, looking at the other people he could have played with, I don't really see very many people that he could have potentially like went after. Everyone else that you would have probably picked up is just hindsight. It's like, wow, that kid was going to be good.
Yeah.
Like, I think the story of the CDL post, I think the first year,
I mean, I probably would
it's not even, bro. Now that I think about it, the story of Call of Duty after Infinite Warfare is all up and coming players. Every year you had players that made significant impacts on teams, and I think like rookie.
Not World War II.
No, after BO4.
You said after Infinite Warfare.
Oh wait, forgot about World War II. Sorry, I forgot about the game. My bad.
And
After World War II.
But even World War II was mainly just simping a beezy. Like, I would say the start of the CDL has been that.
Yeah, but basically Simp and Abizi, right?
Those
Came
guys were
out
anomalies,
after World War II and were absurd. On that United roster. And then the next year you had MW, you had again Simp and Abizi were good, but it was Shotzi and Illy, Hook. You had Pharaoh, Awakening. Like, all these players came into the CDL in the Call of Duty era and made significant impacts. So these are like, OpTic is one of those teams. Scump is one of those players that's going to get that roster that he wants prior to the game coming out, right? And no one could have anticipated that some of these players would be good until later in the season, right? So I don't think he picked bad teammates. I think he picked really good teammates, but then like other people made moves later in the season or picked better in the end. Like, and I don't think that's anything wrong with that. I mean, that's just that's how shit goes, right?
I think Doug's point was more like, because Seth could get any player he wanted, which is probably true with the OpTic backing. Like, he could probably have any player he ever wanted at any time. Is that he picked talented players and the best players, but he didn't necessarily make the best teams. And we've seen that before, where like you can stack a group of really talented guys on a roster, but they don't necessarily make the best team. Especially, it's tough too because we went from 5v5 to 4v4, which is always, I can't believe we ever went 5v5. But I think that was more Doug's point, was just like putting together rosters of super talented players that didn't necessarily mesh together, and that's why they didn't get that many championships. Because, I mean, aside from the Vanguard win, right? OpTic has no championships in the CDL, correct? Am I faded for that?
No, they won. They won one thing in Modern Warfare 2019.
Not a tournament though. They won like a 8-team like.
That was a tournament though at the time. It was a Chicago home series.
FaZe wasn't there. Like
oh, you're right. True.
Like those Modern Warfare tournaments don't count. I'm sorry. I don't care who you're a fan of.
I get it. Count. Yeah. No, I get it. No, you might be right. You want to? Whoa, bro, this might be a faded take. Because I know a lot of people are fans.
Also, hold on. Also, real quick, they didn't win any in World War II, and they only won the opener in BO4, right?
Yeah.
So since the end of the Dynasty run in 2017, which was 5.5 years ago, they really only have 2 wins, which is crazy to think about.
Bro, you want what's nuts?
Two tournament wins.
Wait, no.
Almost 6 years. That's
and this
crazy.
this isn't a shot at Scump. This isn't even a shot at the other player I'm going to mention. This is just the fact that none of these players are actual leaders, and that like can like lead a team. Like, and I feel like we've been in this era where leaders have been like a necessity on like every team. I think we're slowly starting to fade out of that. Like, it's okay to take a less talented player as long as they bring intangibles era. I think it's still going to be a thing for a while, but I think we're slowly potentially fading out of it because I feel like those super talented players are becoming those vets nowadays. But I think Scump's biggest mistake, at least in terms of just having individual success, was playing with Formal towards the tail end of his career and not sticking with somebody like Clay or Krim or probably Clay or Krim.
Just like the best Slayer, but not the best leader.
Yes. And that's not because I don't think Formal was good. I just think that in essence, they were very similar players, but in opposite roles. I think Formal and I think Scump. I think Scump is what. I think Scump is what Scump is for a sub, while Formal is what Scump would be for an AR. And in reverse,
you said
like
that super ridiculous.
I don't know how to explain it, but you get what I'm trying to say. I'm stupid.
A sub Slayer and an AR Slayer.
They're the same player in 2 different roles, bro. I feel like they're the same person. They're the same.
They're just
player
great at getting kills. That's what they are. They're
in 2 different roles.
Amazing at getting kills. I don't disagree with your point. And I think too, when we look at the roster building, how a lot of teams build rosters is like the leader is the quote unquote leader is very much a part of that roster building. And for OpTic, like Seth is that leader in roster building, but Seth is not the leader in game. Never has been, never will be. That's never been his role by any means. And so I think going back to Doug's point of like Seth has been able to pick all of his teams. Well, he just picks Slayers and people that are really good at getting kills, but they don't necessarily put together these teams that are good at winning
mentalities.
And
like,
have the right
like fundamentals and stuff. You know what's crazy also?
I mean, dude, think about it. I mean, what I said earlier, in 5.5 years, only to win 2 tournaments with the level of talent that he's
technically should be able to obtain, right?
Yeah,
we obviously don't know the internal stuff, but also fun fact, although it was only the first event, and they didn't continue to have that success throughout the entire year. OpTic after what was it? Hold on, wait, in World War II did they play with Formal? No, they didn't.
No, they did. They did, and then they dropped him, right?
They dropped them anyways. Yeah, so they won an event and they won their first event in Black Ops 4. Formal wasn't on that team, right? They went through a dry spell, whatever. Some people said they should have made changes, right? Obviously the Tiny Terrace came up. They never made changes until the end. Or no, they never made changes at all, right? Did they keep their same roster in Black Ops 4?
Damon, Dashy, TJ Krim.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, so yeah, they should have made changes. Those guys were faded. But they never made those changes. Whatever, they didn't have any more success. Anyways, next time Seth wins an event was
Vanguard.
Formal was not on that roster. Yeah, I'm not saying Formal was bad. that's not what I'm trying to say. I think Formal was a great player. Winning, he was obviously capable of fucking winning. I just think their mistake or his mistake as a player was not like confiding in like another leadership type player. I feel like he just kept picking up talent, but like they just couldn't like keep it together for a whole season at least.
Now, you mentioned that like obviously these teams they'll pick up players in the offseason before a game's released, and this kind of just goes to like the team building process in general. When you have a team that's newly formed and you have people that you bring in that you've never played with, is like what's the process like about like finding out if you really like vibe with those people? Because obviously like there's good players in the league, sometimes people play eights and stuff together, so they kind of are friends or know their personalities. Like how much pre-thought goes into like the teamwork and how you like gel with new teammates before the roster's actually like locked in? Or is it kind of because like you have the honeymoon stage as well?
It's mega impossible, bro. It's mega impossible to figure out because the people don't realize it, but like your environment as like friends and your environment in like pickup games or anything like that is so different from actually being in an environment where you're trying to win. Because like in an environment where you're just fucking around, like if you lose something or you just like troll, right? You just laugh it off, your boys.
Yeah.
But if you're in an environment where like you actually need to perform and win, if your boy does some stupid shit that he did in those eights, he does it in a scrim, in a match, like those relationships can get strained very quickly. I don't think there's anything you can really do prior to it. At the very least, like maybe if you've played with them before, like I know there's some people that reunite in the future that have played in the past. Or if you've at least played together, but like for example, the lower end teams, bro, I feel like none of these people have ever played together. They just like squad up, but like at least at the top end, like there's been some sort of relationship there for a bit, but I don't think there's anything that players can really do. And I feel like the environment is completely different than actual like, or like an actual match or like a scrim is a completely different environment than just hanging out with your boys. I feel like that's where the product of the friendship league comes in. Everyone's like, oh, these guys are, friends. And then they squat up and they're dog shit. It happens all the time.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. Shit, dude. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, that's a good transition to, what's one thing only other pros would know or understand about competing in Call of Duty / like, I guess, biggest fan misconception about being a pro? Can let that one simmer a little bit.
I think it's got to be. This is a cliche one, but it's got to be
fun.
Did you say scrimming?
Yeah, scrimming is not fun.
I think scrimming is fun if you have the right team. But also, I think
I guess it depends on how long you've been doing it, bro. Scrimming for me got miserable.
I think the biggest
Especially
one is like
you got new teammates.
I think the biggest one, it's super cliche, and I feel like people maybe at least more people are starting to be more understanding of it, is that we live this like luxurious, easy life playing video games. This shit is ass. All right, I'm gonna tell you right now why. Okay, unless you have like the perfect schedule, which I'm sure people could have, right? Or you have like a wife or a girlfriend, or you live with your family and like they can do this stuff for you.
Everyone who's gotten wiped up has quit.
Listen, bro, you wake up, you have your little breakfast days, whatever, you go and you scrim, or you watch VOD before you scrims, and then you go scrim. And that shit takes up, let's see how long. It basically takes up a work day, bro. It's like 8 hours or more, okay? You do all of that, and then you go home or you get off, and it's the same shit. You're fucking tired, you're mentally exhausted, right? Everyone thinks it's like, oh, you played video games, you're having fun all the time. We're not playing to have fun. We've been doing this shit for 10 years. That shit gets old. If you've been doing the same fucking job for this long, unless it's like the most exhilarating thing in the world, sometimes it gets old. On top of that, you have to deal with the fact that the game sometimes is just not that good. Like, and you're doing it every day and it's stressful. You're not playing the game for fun. You're playing the game and you have to perform. So when things that are like the game, like you can't just be like, oh, if you don't like the game, don't play it. What do you mean? It's my fucking job. I have to. Right? So if you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're obviously going to perform worse at it. You're going to feel way more mentally exhausted. And then on top of that, you have to deal with teammates every day. It's not like a job where you sit there and remote work and you don't really talk to people and you have your space. No, you're dealing with people on a daily basis. Like what I'm basically trying to get at is it's an actual fucking job. It's not casually playing a game and getting paid for it. You have to perform, and if you don't perform, you're going to get cut off. You can't get away with just doing the bare minimum like you can at some other jobs where I can just show up, clock in, do the smallest amount of work that I need to do to just please my boss and then go. No, somebody is gunning for your spot at all times. If I work for if I'm a fucking accountant at a firm, no one is gunning from my spot every day, bruh. Like I'm locked in. I'm there every day as long as I show up.
Imagine going to Chris to do your taxes.
You get the fucking point. As long as I go there and show up and do my job every day, no one's gunning my spot. I'm gonna be there for fucking 10 years miserable. But if I get on COD, every day that I throw up the bullshit stat line, somebody else is creeping up on me like, hey buddy, it's my turn now. It's not an easy
or like trying
life.
to talk to your teammates and finesse you.
Oh, it's not an easy life. It's not luxurious. There's days where you don't even have to, like, even if you were to cook, right? Some players don't cook. They just sit there and order food all day. Which is not fucking good for you. It's unhealthy. You're sitting all day. You don't have time to do shit. You neglect the fuck out of your family because you're traveling. Do you know how many times I've had to miss a birthday or, oh shit, my sister just had a baby. I haven't met my niece. He's already 1 year old because I haven't been able to go back and see him because I've had tournaments and scrims. Like,
yeah,
if the fact that your job is so competitive means that, like, if you're not performing, if you're not the very best team, you don't have room to stop and take a chill pill.
Yeah.
You don't have time for vacations or breaks because somebody is right on your ass every time. I think that's probably the main thing that you could easily say that people just don't understand and they never will.
Pat?
Bro, mine was just scrimming.
Scrimming? Oh yeah. Scrimming.
His is super simple. Mine's like super, like, I just love to talk, bro.
Yeah, just no more scrims. Was it just the repetitiveness of it? You said dealing with new teammates.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's the problem for me was, I think Chris chimed on a little bit with like the games. Like, if you get to a point where the new game comes out and like you just don't like the game, then like not only do you not like the game, but then you don't like scrimming, but then you get a teammate, like you just have to make a change, or you get a new teammate, and then you have to like deal with certain aspects of that teammate that you don't like even if it's inside the game or outside the game. It can just get very old very quick, and I think that's not going to be the case for someone that's new on the scene or like in their first few years or whatever. But like, dude, I was playing every day since 2008 for like 8 hours a day, and like when you add that up hour wise, bro, you're in like the 35,000 plus hour range, and then you continually do that, and then you get at a game that you don't really enjoy the same, or the style of the game is different. Like we talked about jetpacks, and then BO4 when you get like super slide canceling, and just the mechanics just get to a point where you don't enjoy. And it's not really about adapting, because you could always adapt, but if you don't enjoy it, like you're never gonna play the same way you would if you did enjoy it. And yeah, I think going back to another point was like back in the day, like, and I say back in the day, which really encompasses like basically 2008 to 2017. I say 2017 because that's when the salaries went up to like the minimum salary in the US. Like every player was basically making close to, at least a pro team was making like close to like 40-50 grand a year in guaranteed money and salary. But like before that, I don't know a single player that wasn't playing for money. Everyone was playing for money. That is what I mean, bro. You were investing so much time. If you weren't making money, you were wasting time.
Yeah.
And so I think the landscape of just how the league, as it grew, how it changed, it was just very different. And now, and even in the start of the CDL, like I mean, you had players guaranteed $300,000, $400,000 like contracts all in. And it just kind of changes everyone's mentality. Like the winning aspect is no longer the most important thing, which is kind of whack. And I think that's also what led to, for me at least, what led scrimming to be not as enjoyable. But yeah, that was always my thing. Was just scrimming got super frustrating after a while, especially when you're just not as good as a team as you think you can be, and you just see like the hurdles. Because I know people like to say it like, oh, just improve, but like, especially if you're a veteran, like you kind of can like not cap your team, but you'll know your team's like range of what you're actually capable of achieving tournament to tournament. It just got really annoying and frustrating not being able to kind of get out of that kind of grind.
Yeah, I think, and when you put it that way, bro, like for someone that's like me, I've been doing this shit for like 15 years, bro. I'm still going even after you retired. Like the job sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know how I played
It's
like 1 month of challengers. And
it's a job, bro. Like that's like 30 plus thousand hours. Like you put that into like actual like years. That's like actual like three something years of actually sitting in the chair playing COD. Not like years, like obviously I've been doing it for 15 years. I've been doing it for like 15 years. But like 3 of those actual years are spent on the chair. You know how people say like, oh, whenever, by the time you pass away, you will have spent a third of your life sleeping. Well, I've spent, some of like 3 years of my life actually playing the game. That's absurd.
365 days times 8 hours a day times 12 years. It's 35,000 hours.
Yeah,
playing.
and you gotta think how many of those days were actually 8 hours.
Yeah, I know they were more, bro. Back in the
more.
day, were way more, bro. I was probably putting in like 12-hour days because you would scrim, then you want to play a tournament, and then you want to play 8s, and then you might play pubs or whatever. Like 8 hours is like the minimum that I think everyone was playing back in the day. But it's a lot of hours. Yeah, crazy, 35,000 hours is a lot of fucking time.
Yeah. So tell me if you do anything in life for 35,000 hours of your life that it doesn't feel like a job. Tell me, because it will.
Yeah.
No matter what it is.
Best player to never win.
Never win what? Anything? Like at all? Or champs? We should do champs.
Champs. Probably
never
champs.
win at all, bro.
Yeah.
Bro, all the old timers that never won at all are probably just dog shit. Like, bro, there's been so many tournaments, unless they just like played, they were a one-off player and then quit.
We should probably cap it from like pre-CDL, like probably like 2013 to 2020, because like there's a lot of people who retired going into like before the CDL.
Best player to never win a champs, but has played for at least 4 or 5 years.
Okay, yeah.
Skill wise,
however you want to quantify.
I'm curious to see. I have my answer, but you might enlighten me here, because there's like, I'm thinking of people that like may not have been the most skilled player, but like they brought a lot to their team, and I feel like, I don't know. You tell me. Skill wise, because you're thinking skill wise. I'm thinking about overall.
Gunless comes to mind for sure. I mean, for how gross that guy was when he got on the scene, like, even for how little he won in general, bro. From like 20, bro, think about 2017. That guy was in contention for best
player in the game for like 3 years.
3 years, yeah, 3 years straight. Like 2017, 2018, 2019. That guy was literally like one of, if not the best. And he didn't really win. I need like a fucking.
If I had a list of players,
yeah,
that'd be lit.
Trying to think what.
My answer would be Enable. When we played with Ian in AW, he was fucking godlike. But also, Ian came so close multiple times. He got third at champs. Then
no, he got his. Oh yeah, then he got 2 seconds.
He got third in 2 seconds.
Wait, which? No. He got
third in AW.
Yeah, he did get second on a BO4. Yeah.
BO4 second, World War II second. What did he get?
He got like 5th, 6th, I think.
Oh, 5th, 6th. He was on that
BO3.
dead face team that couldn't. They were on the big drought.
Yeah.
Either him or probably Zuma, because I think Zuma was gross. AW, BO3, World War II. He was good. He won an MVP. He was pretty good throughout all those years. That's my boss.
I don't
But
know if he's ever. I don't know if he's ever mentioned it, but do you think he'd still be playing now if his thumb was just always good?
yeah.
Probably,
Oh, well,
yeah.
thing is, like, I remember Zuma when he was good before his thumb injury, and he was the last game before I feel like his thumb started to happen was World War II, and he won an MVP.
Yeah.
And he got third at champs. I think if his stream didn't pop off, then yeah, he probably would still be playing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's got to be. Yeah, Tommy would still be playing. He's definitely one.
Slacked.
I think Slack's a good shout. He's another like he's won in every title, pretty much.
How many more
Up until he
years of
retired.
like solid games without a champs would it take for like Dashy to be up there?
Wait, how long has Dashy been playing? Like
Since
seriously,
World War II. Well, I guess he came in like the very end of IW,
he came. Yeah, so World War II.
2017 to now. So like, yo,
Damn.
think about it. When Dashy
Wait,
came
he's
on
there.
the scene,
He's,
that's like
he's right.
that's
Damn,
the
dude,
start of
we're
when we started
old.
talking about OpTic not winning, but like 2 events. Like it was basically when Dashy came on the scene.
We are old. Yeah, I think Dashy's probably up there. I guess I'm
Yeah.
thinking like old timers. I think maybe 5 years was a little bit too small. Because I'm thinking about the old timers. I'm thinking I'm thinking about the people that retired basically right after the CDL.
Time flies.
Saints.
But
Saints
yeah,
is really good.
Saints
like,
is really good too.
basically
Yeah, I mean it's
BO2
got it.
to-
I mean, well, if we're counting 5 years, it's been 5 years since Dashy started playing. I'm not
Yeah.
counting IW because he literally spawned in at the tail end. He
Yeah,
started from
yeah.
World War II, so yeah, I mean it's got to be Brandon if we're doing 5 years. But if we're doing pre CDL people, like actual pre CDL people, like the old timers, it's probably Gunless, Enable,
I was gonna say
Zuma.
Yeah.
But after that, yeah, I mean it's probably that. Holy fuck, Dashy doesn't have a ring. That guy is absurd.
Yeah.
Well, he's only got 1 championship, right? Or 2, because the BO4 one.
2. Yeah.
Winning
2.
nowadays is so hard, bruh.
This was kind of like obviously Formal was joking around with this to some extent, maybe not. It's through a tweet, so you never know. Like he's a trolly guy, but quote unquote, Cellium ruined COD.
No.
Assuming I get the context he's saying, I would probably agree with that. And the reason I say that is because pre-Cellium era, like doing cheesy shit was like frowned upon. Like it was actually frowned upon. Like you did cheesy shit, you did stuff that broke the game, like that was clearly unintentional. We can all
People
agree.
didn't fuck with you.
Snaking, yeah, snaking, slide canceling. Those are unintentional behaviors of just the game mechanics when they're put together. Before Cellium entered, like all that was super frowned upon. Like you were looked at like you sucked and you had to resort to that playstyle to like be successful. You couldn't be successful without that. And then when Cellium came on the scene, you know, I call it like the new era scene, like when all the new kids were coming up, in like the BO4. Think about it. IW, when
Whatever
you
happened
abuse...
to blacklisting, bruh?
Yeah, I don't know. But like think about IW, when you could abuse shit like that, like Cellium was frying people in 8s. Then Cellium didn't even play the World War II season because he didn't like the game because it was so bare bones. And then BO4 comes around and he's back at it and he's gross. And then that's basically starts the era of like all the gross young kids. But I get what Formal's saying because I actually do think, and I obviously don't blame Cellium, but I do think that mentality did ruin COD because there used to be a level of like respect and pride that players held themselves to. And now, I mean, with the amount of money that's given out in guaranteed contracts, and I guess they're not guaranteed anymore, but the amount of money that's given out in contracts, limited amount of spots that you can get on teams, it's like a free-for-all. Like everyone does whatever to be successful. And I think that to me did kind of ruin the competitive integrity of COD because there's that pride aspect kind of left the scene.
I can see his point. I don't agree with it. I do say that I will say that some of the stuff that like I guess he was able to get away with because the fact that he definitely abused mechanics and
He just made it a
shit.
norm. He made
And
it
he definitely made it the norm, but obviously, bro, I don't think it's his fault, bro. Like he at the end of the day, there are things like because I've been on this side of this debate like a lot with like snaking. I'm like, bro, I'd rather know I'm gonna get snaked than like go into like an engagement thinking I'm not gonna get snaked and somebody does it accidentally. and then I lose a situation because of it that could literally lose me a game.
But I'd way rather it be an accidental one time a map
It's
than
never,
see,
but it's
bro. Look
never
at what
accidental, bro. You
Nah,
want what's
because
crazy?
we
You want what's
had
crazy?
these rules. We had
No,
these
no, no,
rules
no,
in
no, no,
NW3 and IW, and it was frowned upon. And like sometimes it would happen. The only people who really snaked was like the European team at the time,
Here's
like when
the
they would
thing,
snake on
though.
Torch. You can tell
Here's-
the difference, bro. I
Here's
would
the
rather
thing,
know
though.
that everyone is trying not to do it and then randomly does it once.
Here's the thing, though. Okay.
Bro, look at
Actually,
Hotel.
wait. Let me
Snake
finish.
a whole hill.
I know.
It,
Yes.
like they're going
But
Comcast,
you're not. Let me
this.
finish. Let me finish. Guess what?
That never happened before.
So we didn't have snaking in a lot of CODs, to be surprised if you would actually go back and remember. MW3, MW2, the old days, they had them. Black Ops 2 didn't have actual snaking, like pop-up glitching. Didn't have it. You go into Ghosts, didn't have pop-up glitching. You go into the Jetpack era, AW, didn't have pop-up glitching.
Well, snaking, no, there was snaking in those games. It just wasn't good because someone could jump above you.
Okay, but there wasn't like actual snaking. Didn't have pop-up glitching. Black Ops 3 didn't fucking have pop-up glitching, and there was also jetpacks. IW had it.
I'm seeing a common theme, bro.
There was a
Infinity
team.
Ward.
Yeah, there was a team that fucking did it. Everyone fucking hated them for it. They stopped doing it, blah, blah. But eventually, it was in the game, but people didn't really abuse it, right? It was still frowned upon. That's one game in like fucking years. World War II didn't have it. We go into Black Ops 4, and Black Ops 4 technically didn't have pop-up glitching. You want what they had? They had slide canceling, and the slide canceling where you would slide an L trigger would trigger it.
Snake.
So people would do it over and over, and guess what? That's the game where Cell came in. So we didn't like have it in other games where like this could have potentially ended up being the norm. Like nobody could have normalized it back then. So I don't think Cellium was the main proponent. I think back in the day, all the people that abused the fucking major mechanics were just considered shitters. But as soon as somebody that was on a good team with commendable players and was godlike at the game started abusing the mechanic, obviously those teammates came to aid them, and then people started doing it back, and then that's when it started. But if it was like some random shitter doing it, people would have blacklisted them. But nobody's gonna blacklist fucking like Zuma and them.
That's
you know
the
what I
thing,
mean?
though. Back in the day, like if you were a random shitter trying to make it, you couldn't make it that way. You had to make it straight up. Like,
Yeah.
you had to. If you wanted to actually make it, you had to make it straight up. You had to like beat people playing straight up because those were the rules. It'd be the same of like beating someone with no GAs and then thinking you're gonna get picked up and play with no GAs. It's just
but
not
then
how it works.
but you see what I'm saying though? It's like we didn't have it for so long, and then the game that it came in, he also came in, so it's just kind of unfortunate timing, although he did abuse them. But also my argument still stands. Fuck the developers for having this shitty stuff in the game, but I would rather know it's gonna happen to me than have someone do it on accident. And you want to know why? When that started for me? In Black Ops 4, you played this game, so you would understand.
Yeah,
Arsenal. No. Arsenal P1. You would rush in, you would get behind the pillar with an ICR, and you would pre-aim. You would beat them to the head glitch, but then they would come around the corner and they would slide cancel their head glitch and camera you, and you would die. So you got punished for getting to a head glitch first because the guy on the rival head glitch would abuse the mechanic and kill you off of it. So rather than like a guy doing it on accident, I started being like, okay, I know I'm gonna get fucking snaked on this thing. So even if I beat the guy first, when I beat him there, I'm gonna slide cancel right in front of me just because I know this guy's gonna do the same shit to me. And that's where this era started for me, at least as a player. That like I hate the fucking mechanics, but like I'd rather know it's gonna happen and be able to prepare for it than have somebody do it on accident.
It took positional advantage out of the game.
Oh, 100%.
Because if anybody could know that they're out positioned, someone made a better play than them, but go to some random geo on the map and just snake it or slide cancel it or whatever and be on an even playing field, even though they didn't rotate on time, they got outplayed, they got outpositioned, whatever, you just make the playing field even. And that's the biggest issue I have with it, is because it just took that skill of knowing where to go, when to go there, how to take the best route, whatever, and be aware of where the enemy team's gonna be coming from, just completely out of the game.
Bro, I've had so many of those.
And shooting.
I've had so many arguments about this accidental shit, and although I fucking hate the fact that it's spam, like, bro, I remember I played against Dave Patty back in Modern Warfare and Challengers, and on Gunrunner, if you remember that map even a little bit, there's like the little train carts. He would lay down on the side of like the charcoal train, the little charcoal little like carts. He would lay down on the side of it and hold an angle. If he heard you and he saw that you didn't come at his angle, he would essentially pop up glitch the other angle and kill you. And that's the whole accidental part. He was snaking me. He wasn't like abusing the snake, but he was in a spot where if I engaged from his blind spot, he would be in a snake. And that was another like whole argument. I'm like, he's not fucking sitting there spamming it, but he knows that if a guy engages his blind spot, he's snaking them. And that, like, you can't be like, oh, he's fucking cheating, you know, he's abusing it. But bro, I know what he's fucking doing. I'm a smart person. So that's why I was always like, you know what? Fuck this shit, bro. Like, I'm not gonna wait to get snaked. I'm gonna make sure that I prepare for it or do it back to them. And that's why I'm not gonna blame Cellium for it. It's the fucking game, bro. It's the game, because I think that's like such a valid reason, bro. Like if you get accidentally snaked for a fucking map win, like what do you even do at that point, bro? Shrug it off?
Yeah.
I don't know. I still just think if everyone made the effort to not play that way, and it's obviously it can't happen now because it's so ingrained in everyone's play style, but it wasn't then. Like back then, it was like it was frowned upon. It was like you didn't do it. You straight up, you spawned into a map and you made sure not to do it, and that's just not the case anymore.
Yeah.
But I would still prefer that being the case, just because I feel like it's a better product for the players and the spectators. Like, dude, the fact that, and this is what pisses me off the most, is the fact that like the CDL glorifies it nowadays. And I don't blame them, obviously, but like, bro, they go in Codcaster third person and just spectate these players snaking. And what really blows my mind, especially now that I'm on like the developer side, is like, dude, if I actually saw that, like I'm making a complaint when I'm back to work on Monday. I'm like, look at this. This is obviously not intended. We need to figure out how to fix this. But yeah, it's not the case. But it's ridiculous. That like
the sad part is too, dude. The reason why people do it, obviously it's a camera, but like the time to kill and is so fucking fast in these games that a lot of the time being on a predictable power position isn't even like good unless you're snaking it, because if somebody knows you're there, they just camera jump around the corner and just literally two tap you off the head glitch. So like good positioning isn't even good positioning. You just get blown.
Yeah.
And in games with like higher time to kills, like BO4 and stuff like that, I could actually hold a head glitch unlse the guy abused the mechanic on me.
Dude, imagine, dude, BO4 without stim and slide cancel would have been goaty.
We would have had to have stock 2 in the game, but yeah, that way at least
we
people
did have
had some
stock
movement
before they nerfed it.
Yeah.
Hot take, BO4's in my top 3 of all time.
Nah, not with stim and slide.
Dude, I liked it. I don't know. I was a fan. It's in my top 3.
COD, dude, stim ruined, bro. Stim ruined search. It made it so everyone had to 5 rush everything.
Yeah, doing damage to somebody didn't mean backing them down at all.
Yeah, because they just back in the fight.
Yeah. Anyways, so final topic of the evening. 2 long-standing Call of Duty legends, very much cares about the space. Esports is in general in an interesting position right now. We've seen stuff from LAG maybe getting rid of their spot after this season. A couple other esports being affected. TSM recently announced that they might be backing out of esports operations for some games. How does COD stay alive in all of this? If you guys got to direct an action plan that was like, if this trend continues with esports, what do we have to do to make COD not die? And what's the answer?
I mean, it's pretty simple in my opinion.
Pat. What?
I don't think COD can survive if the buy-in to this league stays at $25 million. And I don't know how they would navigate that, because they sold 12 spots, but like I don't see in the next few years minimum, I don't see any venture capitalists or anybody, any team come in and commit $25 million to this product.
What is the point of the buy-in? Is it like what does it like fund?
It's the city-based franchise fee.
What do you mean?
Like you buy a location, you buy the rights to that city to be exclusive in that city with your brand for Call of Duty. Like that's it. there's obviously a lot that comes with it.
Is this just some arbitrary price that they made up, or
I imagine they took it from the Overwatch League. I mean, they took basically where sales
Yeah,
were
but
at for
like-
the Overwatch League and decided, because Overwatch franchise in what, 2016, 2017,
Yeah.
CDL came along 3 years later, so they were like, wow, we sold 16 to 20 $25 million spots for one IP. Why don't we do it for the other? But yeah, I don't know. I think that's a massive detriment to
is
Call of Duty
definitely
right now, because you can't get other brands in. And another thing is our challenger ecosystem is probably the worst in all of esports. Like
it's not
by
even
far.
promoted. It's not even promoted by the
Yeah,
COD
like
League
there's
at all.
dude, it's getting to the point where, like, I mean, I think it was Pander, I think, said in like the Minnesota ROKKR video series, he was like, I literally had to go out and get a second job to even like work a night shift to afford to afford the opportunity to play in challengers to maybe make my dream come true. And so that's another issue, is like, I think our challenger landscape is going to dry up over the next coming years, because financially it just doesn't make sense. Like if you're, let's just say you're over 18, let's just assume everyone's an adult and they aren't living with their parents, which I know a majority probably are. Life gets expensive. You know what I mean? Like you have to pay for shit. And I just don't think there's any way to make money in the challengers at all. Definitely not a livable wage by any means. So that combined with the fact that the actual CDL, the Pro League, is not going to expand. A lot of, I think what that means, there's 48 spots available in the league. Like that's only 48 players who can basically compete, and I don't see a majority of them retiring anytime soon. They're all in pretty good state. The league is aged down a lot. So that, with the fact that expansion looks rough because the buy-in is way too high there, and the biggest thing is, for honestly all of these orgs, like there's a massive lack of profitability, and I think profitability is going to have to come in the next few years. It's going to be insanely, not profitability, but like a better path to profitability, because the ability to raise money is going to get incredibly hard over the next 24
But also,
months.
like, even if people are raising money, they're not even like breaking even or making profit because they're spending so much shit on useless stuff.
No, but they're
whether
gonna have
it's-
to break even just to justify staying in.
I know,
Not even
but what I'm
break
saying
even,
is
but
they're
lose
spending
less money than
they're spending so much money on useless shit, or they're overpaying players. Yeah, I think players should be paid what they're worth, but at the same time, bro, most of these players don't do shit outside of play the game, and I'm not saying they necessarily have to, but like we need to be realistic with player salaries, and there needs to be a harsher cap. Not only that, I feel like if the cap is a lot harsher, I think talent would be more likely to spread out more, because I feel like I'm not saying lower it all the way down to 50K so these fucking shit teams can actually maybe afford to actually get good players.
But Chris, six out of these 12 teams are playing their players the minimum.
Okay, yeah, I know, but I'm saying, listen, I'm not making an excuse for bad franchising. I'm just saying in general, teams would more likely be able to stay afloat if they just were able to spend less, hypothetically.
I think the hard truth right now is that if you surveyed all 12 teams and got an honest answer, I would say that 6 of these 12 teams, if you could guarantee them selling their spot for the amount of money they paid to get in, they would all go.
They would, yeah, like if they could basically break even right now, will they leave?
Or if they could if they could release their commitment and for losing no money and get out. Because I think a lot of the CDL buy-in fees have been like waived each year and delayed. I don't know when they started making those payments, but if you could, I guarantee if you surveyed all 12, 6 of them at least would say, yeah, we're down to get out and release our commitments to the league.
I think it's interesting what you said.
Which is super scary.
I think it's interesting what you said about the challengers thing too, because I like, and them drying up and people needing a second job, because it's almost becoming like without a better path to pro, it's almost becoming like, kind of a privilege to be able to try to be a challengers player for between the ages of 18 and maybe 20 to 21. But like during that time, like not everybody has the means to just like either not work a job or not go to school or work a job and do it at the same time. So like you said, like there's no like it's really like at some point or another, well, it didn't work, and there's no path for me to take here. So
Yeah.
I guess
Or
it's
you're-
just,
Well, that's because there's no security.
I guess
there's
it's,
no
yeah, it's like,
compensation in any
let me
way.
just move on. It makes
or
you
you're
think how many
postponing-
people, it makes you think how many like possible future league players maybe just stopped playing literally when they turned 19 because they were like, well, there's no path here. There's nothing that I can present to my parents, because obviously a lot of people have parents that they need to like show them something when they're 18, 19 years old. There's nothing to show. And so like the result is, okay, I'm just going to stop playing Call of Duty.
Otherwise you delay just regular life. All right. Like regular life commitments, like going to school, getting a job, having a relationship, like, pursuing other things, having a kid, buying a house. Like there's shit that happens in your early 20s to 30s where it's like, well, if you're super committed to being a challenger player to hopefully eventually make it pro, you give yourself a time window, but like, dude, you can't just keep kicking the can down the road forever, right? Like you eventually got to be like, all right, is it possible or not? And I feel like that window is getting much less and less because you see what's going on.
Smaller because there's no path. It's just there's no path. It's just a dead end. Like you have nowhere to go. You just spawn in.
And the biggest thing is you see, dude. Imagine, this is the craziest thing. Imagine you're in challengers, right? And you're on this path, and you see the people winning in challengers and not getting opportunities, right? Like you're like, damn, this guy just won the last two, like whatever the challenger championships title. He didn't even make it in. So like, what's it gonna be for me if I go and do this and then I don't even get in?
Luckily, there are people getting opportunities, but I still think too few people are getting opportunities. I feel like,
but it's random selection. It's not based on performance.
Sometimes it's not. Like I was saying on the flank earlier, I'm like, bro, there's been people that have placed top 16, and then the next weekend they're in the pro league. Like it's never just like, oh, this guy won the turn. Sometimes it is the guys that win the tournament, the weekend before or something, which is crazy. But other times it's not, bro. I've seen it a lot of time where a guy just gets absolutely slam dunked, but like, and then he gets put back in, or a former pro drops down, plays challengers, gets absolutely world star slam dunked, boom, league spot. Like it makes no fucking sense. But on top of that,
about who you know.
Yeah, on top of that, I was gonna say that's why I want to see a way that the CCL ties in with challengers. I don't think you necessarily need to be in the CCL or in the CCL to be in challengers, but like if the CCL and challengers kind of had like a thing together where like if you played in challengers, like you like and you were like an X amount of like if you were like a X team in terms of like how high, like you were a top like 12 team in challengers, that you would basically be offered scholarships to go to school.
That'd be crazy. That would actually be crazy.
Exactly.
If there was like an incentive to help you afford like school and stuff. Yeah.
But then the thing is though, let's say there's all these 12 teams, right? That's a lot of players. You got to think maybe half of those players take that offer, because it's not, you don't have to necessarily be, it doesn't have to be necessary. Let's say half those players take that offer. Now you know that half of these players are scattered throughout these teams. They are obviously on the same wavelength where like, oh, I have classes, this guy has classes, this guy has obligations. Now you can schedule your scrims around the fact that like the best players in challengers, the best teams all have these obligations. Nowadays, it's not like that. It's like a lot of the teams just scrim when pro teams do, because they want the opportunity to scrim pro teams, which I get. But at the same time, those hours are like normal working hours. So a lot of those people
I actually brought
don't
this
have
up.
jobs, or they don't have, they're not in
can't-
school, or they have to work DoorDash.
This is actually
like that's the only thing that they
unacceptable.
can.
This is actually unacceptable. I've said it before. I do not know why the challengers are staying on the pro scrim schedule. I cannot fathom it. I'm telling you all right now, you're all stupid for staying on the pro scrim schedule. You're literally fucking yourself. You can't do anything. Like, I cannot fathom it. Back in the day when we played, and this is obviously pre-CDL, like scrims were like 5, 6 p.m. into the night, right? When the CDL happened, the pro players, because of the fact that it was CDL now, wanted to change this because everyone's guaranteed their slots, and we're more spread out across the US than we were before. And we're sitting there and we're saying, okay, let's bump it to like, I think it was like 2 p.m. I think it was even earlier than that at first. It was like 10 a.m. West. People wanted to do it 1 p.m. And then it's like 1 p.m. to like 7 p.m. It's like, dude, if you're in challengers, why would you mimic that schedule? Because you cannot work outside of that. Like,
Yeah.
unless
You
you're
would have to
doing
work
literally like
nights.
DoorDash or a night
Or-
shift, and then it's like, well, at that point, you have no life.
You're
If your
fucked.
life
Yeah.
is if your life is work all night, sleep until noon, wake up, and then play challengers all day, and then go to sleep to work. Like, I don't know. I
There
don't
are
understand.
some players
There's,
that do that.
there's
I
no
want to give a
benefit.
shout out to my boy Gunsy because he
But
works.
there's no benefit
and he
from
goes
the
to- he
all the
does- he's-
challengers keeping that.
Gunsy works. He goes to school in the CCL, and he plays challengers. He does all of them.
But
That
what I'm
guy
saying
is the
why
definition
do
of
it?
he wants it.
But why do it on that schedule?
Oh
why
no,
why
I
would
think it's
challenger
stupid too.
players have the same
Yeah.
schedule? They don't benefit.
It's
Pros
because
don't have to work. Pros don't have to do anything.
It's because they want to play pro teams. And like, don't use me as an example. I have a stream and I have other obligations, and I'm not firstly committed to challengers. So I think challengers is my side project that I like to do. And it also ties into content. But like, bro, I know so many fucking players that are just sitting on their asses. Some of them just recently started doing CCL. So I'm assuming they're going to school. So good for them. They're finally actually working on a plan B while also doing Call of Duty. But I know I used to know so many players that wasted fucking years just fucking not streaming, not doing anything but playing, scrimming, and stuff like that. And then what happened if you don't make it? How many years did you waste? Either not, like, if you played on a night schedule, if let's say challengers teams agreed to scrim from like 5 to 6 p.m. to like midnight, at least you could work work a part-time job and still have like your afternoon to chill for a little bit, then go scrim. Or you want to work a damn near full-time job, you could get off at 6 p.m., come home and scrim.
Go to school, get your degree,
Go to school.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Bro, I mean, those
It's
hours
like they're
were
all
literally
mutually.
made because
They're mutually saying like, let's just all fuck ourselves.
Those hours were made. Those hours
give us
were
no option.
Those hours were made because it became a full-time job for pros. So they put it in
the reason we had the old
so
hours
that people could,
because everybody was in school.
everyone was a fucking kid or teenager.
The age of everybody back then was like 16 to 22. Like that's literally high school and college. Like everybody was in those.
I was West Coast, right? My school for me ended at like 2-3 o'clock. I didn't get home until like 6:30, 7:30 East, or 6:30, 7
That's
East.
why scrims used to be 6 p.m. because we had to wait for West Coast kids to get out of school. So that's why the scrims were at 6 p.m. That's when they started. 6 p.m. East and on. That's when we scrimmed. And I know Halo actually did it even later. Halo was like, they gave people the opportunity to like, because Halo age was a little bit older than Call of Duty's. Like people were past high school at this time. Halo didn't start scrims until like in the nighttime, like 9, 10 p.m. They played to like 2, 3 a.m. Like, I just can't fathom that like these challenger players haven't got together and say, hey guys, this is not sustainable for any of us. Let's actually come up with a schedule that benefits us as players and doesn't benefit the pros.
I
Pros
know
are
more.
Fine. They're chilling. They got multi-$100,000 contracts. They're loving their schedule. They have no obligations outside of their scrim schedule. Why are you fucking yourselves to appease them? Makes no sense.
And it's getting worse. I know more players nowadays that are in challengers that are good challenger players that are doing CCL or working or doing something of that nature. Bro, Pander has a fucking kid, bro, and he's on this schedule. That guy doesn't even have that. Luckily,
and he's working.
Luckily, I want to say he's getting paid by ROKKR now, so he's maybe not.
Bro,
I don't know if he's working, but either way, the point is,
this is why I brought this up, Chris. In the ROKKR video, it was Pander. He's the one who said, I had to get a job to survive. Yeah. If he's on the ROKKR Academy team and he has to still get a job, clearly he's not getting paid enough to do this full time as a challenger player from ROKKR. And I'm not saying it's ROKKR's fault, but I'm saying like, even think about that. You're on a professional orgs academy team as a challenger player. You still have to get a job to afford your just daily life. Like, it's just not it's not good for anybody right now, and I think that desperately has to change. But again, James, back to your point, is like this is a massive hurdle, I think, for the CDL in general, and I don't know how much is going to change in the next 12 to 24 months. I think it's going to be rocky for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I think that was just about it for the episodes. Guys, in the comments, please let us know what you think about the whole second half and 2/3 of this episode. I love talking to these guys about this kind of stuff because the matches are great, but sometimes these qualifier weeks, they're a little bit slower. We're seeing the same thing, and we're still going to cover all the same topics, all the big stuff that's going on. But some of this stuff is just a little extra that we get to kind of dive into as a kind of a cherry on top. We're narrowing it down though in the season. So again, thank you guys for hanging out tonight. Well, I guess morning because this is coming out Monday morning. Anything from you boys before we head out?
Oh, congratulations to who won the giveaway again?
It's Nico something.
Nico, either way. Nico, congratulations on the giveaway. We'll be in contact soon to get you your new Battle Beaver. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. We're going to be doing a lot more giveaways, and who knows, we might be giving away some more precious Battle Beaver controllers because we know how much you guys love those. Thank you all. Seriously, the support every time on all the episodes is amazing, and I appreciate every single one of you. We appreciate every single one of you.
Yeah, last episode we hit a record for the season, so all going up for reverse sweep. We love it. And yeah, that's gonna do it. See you guys. Thank you.
Peace.